Hey guys, this is Justin. Hello and welcome to another video. Now, this wasn't what I was initially planning to upload today, but we got some very sad news which I thought deserved a video, especially given the fact that this is a story that's repeated a few times now in I guess the past year or so. We'll be talking about the passing of some of my favorite Star Wars authors today and how we've been hit pretty hard in the past year. So of course, for that reason, this video will not be monetized, but I am going to check for any GoFundMes related to any of these authors if they exist and post them down in the description. All right, so the news we got today was that Star Wars author Tom Veitch unfortunately passed away at the age of 80. And if you Google his name, Tom's passing is getting a lot of attention from magazines, and there's lots of articles being written about him, often labeling him as one of the most important figures of the Star Wars expanded universe. Gizmodo called him the vanguard of the Star Wars EU, and that's actually very accurate. So in 1991, Tom helped kickstart the Star Wars expanded universe sort of revitalization with the Dark Empire comic series. Dark Empire, which obviously very heavily inspired The Rise of Skywalker, and really the sequel trilogy as a whole, saw the Empire, which had been thought largely defeated, return from an unknown part of space, devastating the New Republic, taking Coruscant, destroying several of their bases, while secretly under the command of the reborn Emperor Palpatine. But we're not going to talk about the closeness to the sequel trilogy or even the plot of those stories. What's important is that the early 90s was a pretty dark era for Star Wars as a whole. The prequels were still almost a decade away. There wasn't really a Star Wars expanded universe being regularly contributed to, and honestly, I believe that the re-emergent Star Wars expanded universe in the early 90s played a very important role in keeping a lot of the fandom flourishing. Because although it feels like the EU had been around forever, it was really the early 90s which saw both Dark Empire and the Thrawn trilogy restart the EU in both comic and book form, of course. Both the Thrawn trilogy and Dark Empire were very, very successful and would play an important role in establishing the early EU. Well, I think Timothy Zahn is more often appreciated than Tom Veitch was. Tom still laid the foundation for a lot of what would come after, and what's more, he also worked to make sure that Dark Empire 2, the comic series sequel to Dark Empire 1 and Empire's End, actually shared a continuity with the Thrawn trilogy, and from that point on, although it wasn't always perfect, the Star Wars EU was one unified timeline with stories building upon each other in a way that I don't think any expanded universe has really properly done before or arguably even since. At least not to that scale. And I don't want to say that Tom Veitch is only a Star Wars author, but this is how I was introduced to his work, and this is why he was important to me. For a lot of us, either as kids or adults, the EU was not only something that helped nourish our love for Star Wars, but also encouraged us to get into reading. I remember tearing through the Young Jedi Knight series as a kid, and I just think that that is worth recognizing. Lots of important parts of Star Wars Legends were established in Dark Empire, from Palpatine's return to Anakin Solo being born and more, but Tom also created the much-loved Tales of the Jedi series. I have to admit, personally, I was never really able to get into comic books as much as I would have wanted as a kid. It was just too expensive to collect every issue, so I typically went for books instead, but Tales of the Jedi was definitely a foundational bit of Star Wars material. It was really one of the first things that dealt with the Jedi as a whole, because most of the EU stuff at that point had been dealing with the Jedi and the galaxy after Endor. This, of course, was way before the prequels came out. So this gave us a look at what the Jedi at the height of their power may have been like, and is actually a portrayal that I prefer over what we got in the Old Republic, at least. So really, if you enjoy Dark Horse's Star Wars stuff, which is actually now running again after some time of Marvel exclusivity, you definitely owe a thanks to Tom, and I think it's worth recognizing the impact that he had on Star Wars if you enjoy the expanded universe. Tom was, of course, more than just a Star Wars comic book writer, and more than just a comic book writer overall. But if you have any thoughts about the man and his work, make sure to let me know down in the description. So, it's a sad day for Star Wars fans, but this is certainly not the only bit of sad news that we got recently when it comes to some of our favorite authors passing away. So I wanted to take a second to talk about a few others. Just over a month ago, it was January 14th, I believe, Dave Wolverton, who sometimes worked under other names, but was most famously, for Star Wars fans at least, the author of the much-loved Courtship of Princess Leia, passed away. Last year, Els Neil Smith, who wrote the Lando Calrissian Adventures, a very fun and wacky adventure in the Star Wars universe, passed away. Those were actually some of my first introductions to the Star Wars Expanded Universe. I have a very good memory of seeing Lando Calrissian and the Mind Harp of Sharu in the library of one of my elementary school teachers, and that title was just so grabbing, I had to know more. As a note, by the way, those books came out in the early 80s, so although I talk about Dark Empire and the Thrawn trilogy sort of acting as a restart or reinvigoration of the Star Wars Expanded Universe, definitely worth noting the people that were working even before then. Last year also saw the very sad and premature passing of J.W. Rinsler, who was not even 60. He was a Star Wars archivist and also contributed to various encyclopedias and Star Wars sources. 2019 also saw Vonda McIntyre, author of Crystal Star, pass away. And I mean, everyone's going to die. That's life. But I guess the message is to appreciate the people who make things that you love while they're here. And even when they go, don't forget the contributions in the heart that they put into their work and the things that you love. I mean, a lot of these people too, you can reach out to them, you can talk to them. A lot of these authors love talking Star Wars. If you go on Twitter, many of them will respond when you message them or when you tweet them. If you enjoy someone's work, it costs nothing to say thank you. I always think about Aaron Alston, who wrote some of the greatest Star Wars Expanded Universe books there were, from Wraith Squadron to some of the best books in Legacy of the Force and Fate of the Jedi. He passed away in 2014 and he was only 53. But that's all I really have for today. Again, not much of a video. Sorry I didn't really edit this. I just wanted to get my thoughts out on this. We should be back to normal tomorrow. Until next time, though, be safe, have a good one, and may the Force be with you.